Hello and welcome back to Catapult Your Career, where we delve into the reality of various careers and explore practical advice for numerous professions. And on this episode, we're going to be delving into another career, and that is the career of accountancy. So this is something actually I initially wanted to do. This was a career I wanted to do at an early age. But I have none other than a good friend who I met very recently, and we might go into a bit more into that. In Hannah. So how are you, Hannah?
I'm good. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you for coming. And like I said, we recently met. We both did some volunteering for an organisation called Care for Calais, which some people may or may not have heard about, which was amazing. And both myself and my partner Jess met you and your partner Michael as well.
Michael.
But yeah, why don't you start off? Just give us a bit. Oh, sorry. Go on, Hannah.
No. I think it's a bit of Wi-Fi issues, but yeah, no, I'll chat a bit about myself. I am currently on a career. I'm on a career break at the moment. 6 months in. I think we're going to be going till Christmas. So 9 months of a career break. But before that, I was working for a record label called Warner Music. And I was a finance manager there. I'd been there for 4 years. Started as a accounts assistant. I wasn't qualified at the time. I qualified at Warner, so they helped me, we can go into this later, but helped me through my studies. And then I went to a management accountant and then to a finance manager. Really, really loved working there. Great company, great people. Learned a lot, which was good. And then before that, I did a job for a year at WPP, which is a media agency, again as an accounts assistant. Before that, I was at university. I studied accounting and management, and I did a placement year at Disney. So there's a recurring theme that I've stuck with: entertainment or music. I was at Disney Channel at Disney. But yeah, I guess that's my career bit.
Amazing. Yeah, and that's it's good to kind of get yourself on. I always, when I suppose I'm coaching clients and they're looking to transition careers, when we get near the end and they've kind of chosen a path or chosen a career, one of the key actions I get them to do is to expand their network in that place.
Okay.
And I always suggest that they reach out to people themselves, but 4 years on.
Okay.
So, because I think if you reach to like someone who's like an MD of accounting or something like that, so 10 years ahead, they're not really experiencing the same problems you're experiencing, and they're quite far removed. So that's why it's amazing to have yourself on, because for those who are wanting to transition into accounting or even want to start their careers, you're the perfect person to kind of hear your experiences, which you can perhaps relate to for those people starting,
Yeah, no, definitely. I think there's a lot of journeys that can get you to the same place that I was at. And mine's quite a stereotypical one. I studied accountancy at university. You don't have to study accountancy at university, and you don't even have to go to university. There's lots of different pathways into to being an accountant. But I guess, mine's like the perfect one, but there isn't a perfect one. I think it was kind of back to when I was 16 and picking my A-level options, looking at my strengths. I was really into dancing. That's something we can go on to later, but I was really into dancing, but didn't quite fit with the English artsy side of things. And so my A-levels were maths, economics and geography. I even looked at a sixth form that did offer an accountancy A-level, but I didn't go there because it was a boys' school. Mum wanted me to go to a girls' school. So I guess I've had the most perfect career pathway into this job, but that's one of the benefits of accountancy is that I've got friends that did psychology at university. I've got friends that didn't go to university, and we've all kind of ended up in similar jobs. So yeah, really good.
Yeah. No, amazing. And like you said, there is no, there's no such thing as perfect, but like you said, you might have had the stereotypical kind of pathway into accountancy. And
Yeah,
like as you're talking about it, I suppose, for people, if there's a degree route and a non-degree route, what could you explain perhaps what those two routes actually look like if someone wanted to enter accountancy?
yeah, sure. So my pathway was I did accounting and management. So you can do the most popular one is accounting and finance. I went with accounting and management, so it had more business modules, had HR, had law. And as part of that degree, I did a placement year. So that was like a big selling point for me because I knew that when I graduated, I had a bit of like industry experience. Um, but yeah, as part of my degree, and this is quite a specific one, I went to the University of Kent. So I don't know if any listeners know this as well, but or other universities offer it as well. But my degree gave me exemptions when I then came to do the qualification after university. Um, so yeah, I've got a friend that
Mhm.
studies psychology. She then came out of university and was like, "What am I going to do?" Maybe speaking to me or seeing what careers were available. Then decided to go into accountancy, and I think she qualified last year, so completely different degree choice. I've also got another friend who did AAT, which is there's lots of there's lots of abbreviations. So we've got maybe so AAT is you don't go to university, but it's the equivalent of I think it's the up to second year of university, um, and it gives you a really good
Mhm.
foundation to accountancy, which you can then use in your workplace, or you can then take on and do your accountancy qualification. Um, there is no benefit to going to university, and there is no benefit of doing AAT. They're pretty similar, and they get you to the same place. It's kind of what works for you. Um, if you prefer to be in a workplace and study AAT in your spare time, or go to college and study AAT, or if you are more academic and want to go to university, then you can do the degree. But that's why it's good. It's this flexibility and gets you to the same place.
Yeah, amazing. Right, thank you for kind of like sharing that. And I think that is the key for like people I suppose who are listening. It's sharing the reality of like these different careers and like
Yeah,
the different options and ways you can get into it.
yeah,
From that AAT and then the degree, perhaps you get to that same level. That's where I start to hear, and this is where my knowledge kind of starts to peter out. I know there's CIMA, which is like Chartered Institute for Management Accountants, and then
hmm
you have your ACA, and there's other bodies. Could you tell us a bit more about that? I suppose once someone's done a degree or AAT, if they're wanting to get to accountancy, where does it go then from those kind of different chartered bodies? I suppose.
yeah, yeah. I kind of want to preface this by saying that um, although I'm qualified and a lot of my friends are qualified, you can still work in finance and be an accounts assistant without being qualified. I have a friend who didn't go to university, studied AAT. She's working towards exams, but it's not like a massive focus. And you can still have that career if you want. There's a few things that you can't do. You can't sign off on accounts. Probably audit isn't the area that you would focus on. It would be more industry, but being qualified isn't the be all and end all of being an accountant. Sorry, so that was my preface. And now, so you have, I guess, three main bodies. We have three bodies of the accountancy qualification. You have ACA, which is for people that are in practice. So the big four that everyone's heard of: PwC, Ernst and Young, Deloitte, and the other one. Um, you that's really bad. You you normally work at this is I wasn't in practice. You work at these and you could like Grant Thornton's another one, but you work in practice and it's an intense environment and you do ACA and the exams are every 3 months, and you might have sessions where you're taking multiple exams. It doesn't focus on any of the management accounting side. It is more about reporting and financial statements and the preparation and the audit of financial statements. My qualification is ACCA, which is, again, more financial than management accounting, but mine's more tailored to people that want to do it in an industry. I guess that's a good time to touch on why they're similar qualifications, but you can do it in industry and practice. I went for the industry route because I am not great at I think the intensity of the exams was a big drawback for me. I liked that when I had to do exams, it was on my time. So if you have things in your personal life that you want to prioritize, then you get a 10-year window of doing the exams. So you don't have to do them in 3 years. I think even in practice that you can have an option to do them in 2 years. But that was like a big benefit for me for doing ACCA. I also got to work in industry. I got to study as well as work, and that for me helped me with my understanding while doing the exams. And then CIMA definitely focuses more on management accounting and is for industry only. Again, you have the flexibility of when you want to do exams. I guess a drawback of that is that when you're in industry, you're normally doing it on your own. So in practice, you're in like a cohort of people that you're all going through that journey together. You progress through 3 years of a grad scheme. Whereas for me, it was my motivation to book this exams. It was my motivation to get into the office early and revise before work and stay after work. So if you're self-motivated, you can definitely do the ACCA and CIMA qualifications. So yeah, three main bodies. But again, all get you to the same place unless you want to work in audit. And ACA is the board that would be best suited to you.
Amazing, and thank you. I was going to ask what the difference is between industry and practice. Sorry, so thank you for kind of highlighting that as well. And I suppose you said, like, for terminology, I suppose for others, I have a very loose understanding. But just before we get on to perhaps what some of the different fields are that an accountant can do, because you mentioned audit, you might do certain ones, and it'd be interesting to know what other fields are.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say is the difference between financial accounting and management accounting?
A really simple way of thinking about it is that a financial accountant looks at the past. So they will prepare financial statements, so your balance sheet, your profit and loss account, your cash flow statement for things that have already happened, and they report the actuals, so your past activity. Whereas a management accountant looks at the current position of a company and the future capabilities of the company. That's the simple terms. A management accountant, you could be a finance business partner. So you could work within a company, let's use Warner as an example. And you would work with the marketing team, you would work with the HR team, you would work with even like an IT team, and you would help them manage their budgets. You would help them manage their spend, make sure they're spending enough, because if you don't spend enough, you're not going to get the budget next year. Making sure that they're not overspending, obviously, and also helping if they have any big projects coming up. So if you know that an IT team needs to implement a completely new system or buy laptops, you would help, I guess, put together a framework that you can then take to someone hiring the business and get approval for. So yeah, management accountant is more industry, financial accountants are more audit. But again, there's financial accountants within industry because you need people to prepare financial statements, which then get audited. So in my past role, I had a mixture between financial and management accountants. It was a really good role for me to kind of deep dive into both. But yeah, the lines get blurred a bit, to be honest, between the two.
Yeah, and it's good to know like the reality of it. And I think again, thank you for kind of sharing that, because I think for those people listening who are interested in the world of accounts, I think that kind of we're starting to paint a picture of what people might be interested in.
Mm.
And from your explanation, which I loved, it made me remember why I enjoyed management accounting when I started. So I when I went to university, I took accounting and finance as my degree at the University of Essex,
Okay.
and thankfully, regardless of your business discipline, you did the same four core modules in your first year.
Okay.
So I did something like business management, quantitative methods of finance, economics, and accounting.
Mm.
And I did the best score, I think, was in the business management, and my second best score was in accounting. And
Okay.
I actually swapped my degree to business management. And with hindsight, it's easy to see why, because I love, I'm fascinated by people and all the rest of it.
Mm.
But the thing I loved the most about my accounting was the management accounting, because I could see that more applying to like a business context and being
Mm.
a bit more future thinking and proactive in terms of how I build a business.
Mm.
So that it's really helpful, that definition you're given, I suppose, on the two.
I think it's one of the things that I liked most about my past role was that I was an accountant. I was in the back office, I guess you could say, but I was so involved with the operations of the company because they needed me and they needed my team to help them run their sector of the business. I think that's like a bit of a stereotype is
Mhm.
that finances it is the back office and it is the accountants are boring, but that it's not at all because you couldn't work your job without the people that are doing the fun stuff in this is an industry the fun stuff and they can do their job without you and it is really cool like in Warner when you hear that something's like a project has gone successfully or um, something that you've worked on and you feel part of that and that's what I liked about being a management accountant is that you're not just this finance team, you feel part of the business. Um, yeah, it's a good benefit of the job.
Definitely, definitely. And you mentioned, I know, you said it in jest about like accountants being boring, and it kind of made me remind me of a question I wanted to pose to you about what would you say are some of the common misconceptions or myths about accounting for those listening?
Well, the biggest one is being boring. So whenever I meet new people, when I meet new people, maybe down the pub or wherever it is, and I say I'm an accountant, there's no more questions. It's I'm an accountant, and they know what I do, and that's it. And it is far from that. Um, like some of my most like amazing, exciting, adventurous friends are accountants. The job is different day to day. You have structures, you have deadlines, you have the monthly cycles, yearly cycles, budgets, audits, and that's what again I like about the job is that you kind of know what's coming forward. But at the same time, there's always hiccups. There's always new bits that are thrown at you, new systems. Um, and I love problem solving. And this job allows me to do a lot of problem solving. Almost become like a forensic accountant, finding why a balance sheet doesn't balance, or why there's a number off, or a variance, or it's also really nice to feel that you can help other parts of the business. So you feel like needed. I guess that's a good part of the role. But yeah, biggest misconception is being boring, and it's far from that. I think hopefully doing stuff like this kind of changes that narrative a bit.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like I said, I've met you for a good week or so. We've been doing our volunteering, and I'm not just saying it's a pleasure. If you were boring, I wouldn't keep in touch with you, Hannah. So that says something.
Thank you.
Definitely not. You're definitely not boring, and I think it's sometimes we as people we're quite lazy and we like to put people in little boxes, and
Mm,
it's just like easier for our brain just to like, oh, you're accountant, you're this, you're this, so and so, you're this, but the reality is completely different. And I think again, you said some of the misconceptions, and actually, like, yes, there's a bit of a maybe a seasonal structure to your work, but more on a weekly or daily basis, things can kind of change quite rapidly. And if you've got that proactiveness, which you certainly have by what you've said, you can also shape your role to a certain degree. And that kind of quite nicely brings us on to, I suppose, a question I often ask all the kind of guests when we talk about certain careers. What perhaps for you as an accountant an average week actually looks like?
I think it depends on where we are in the month, where we are in the year, where we are in the budget season. So I guess a big part of being an accountant revolves around deadlines. So we have monthly cycles. At Disney, we had quarterly cycles. Here we have Warner, we had monthly cycles. Month end week is when we close the accounts for that period, for that month. And we post any journals. So journals are when an amount might be in the wrong account, or we have to create an accrual or a prepayment, and we do the accounting bits for month end, and we get everything in the right place and make sure that there's no mistakes, or that we've accounted for something on a timely basis, being prudent, and all of that kind of stuff. And it then goes to the higher management, and it doesn't just go to higher management in finance, it goes to I don't know, like CEO, obviously operations, even the HR department that might want to see their performance for that month, they'll get their reports. So month end is a busy week. We then have quarterly deadlines, or I had quarterly deadlines, which is when it's more of like a company-wide view. So especially working in a big international company, you have lots of moving parts that you want to try and bring together, and that kind of happens at a quarterly basis or a yearly basis. Year end is making sure that you don't have any mistakes that can't be corrected afterwards because the books close. And when the auditors come in, we want to make sure that all those things that need changing or accruing or prepaying happening at year end, so that when the auditors come in, it's accurate and it's correct, and they can do their job and check that. So yeah, they're kind of the deadlines. And budget, if you're a management accountant, you have budget season, which is making sure that you are looking forward. You're also looking backwards, I guess, to see what you've spent, but you're looking forward as to what you're going to spend next year. And that involves talking to a lot of stakeholders in the business, gathering lots of information and making like big judgments, estimations, and there's lots of ways to estimate within accounting. So yeah, so they're kind of like the deadlines. My day-to-day is obviously emails, because you talk to a lot of people around the business. You talk to external people as well, making sure things are get paid on time, making sure you're paying people on time. A lot of Excel, which is obviously a massive cliche, and lots of systems. So that's one thing to being an accountant, is that you use a lot of accounting systems. So SAP or SAP is the biggest one, I think, that everyone knows. So yeah, using systems, I guess testing parts of system, like that's a bit that I had to my role. My past role was like testing things that they were continuously improving the systems, and so you had to test this new system to make sure that it would fit and work with everything that you needed it to. But yeah, going to meetings, I guess that's a big thing, because working from home was great and it's good for your work-life balance. But getting into the office and seeing everyone and having those like proper chats, rather than it just being a work chat, it's like you're getting to know that person, and hopefully that work relationship then builds from that, is great. But it's an advantage of being an accountant, is that you can do this job working from home, and you can do it anywhere in the world, because of things like Zoom and Teams and whatever. So yeah, sorry, I kind of went off, but yeah, a lot of my job, my average week, depends
No,
on kind of
no.
week it is, whether it's month end, quarter end, year end, audit. Yeah, so sorry to diverge.
Please don't apologise. It's good to, like you said, that it's, although it's a simple open-ended question, it's always a much more detailed answer, and it's also helpful to know. Yes, an average week could involve various meetings, emails, and communication with not just internal but external kind of organisations or colleagues, but also that very, again, we go back to this seasonal kind of element of your work.
Yeah,
That week can look very different in certain times if it's year end or a management accountant. So, it's helpful to know, and it quite clearly links to, I suppose, some of the perhaps the qualities or skills that you might need for the job. Because obviously, there's a massive part of, and perhaps a misconception, that accountants kind of sit at home on their own. They're not very social. They don't interact with people and all the rest of it. Which, from my experience of you, you're like the complete opposite. So that's one misconception in the bin. But like, what would you say are some of the qualities or skills you would be well suited for someone who wants to get into accountancy?
yeah. Well, I was going to make a joke, and this is for all the office listeners. You have to like cats. So that that was like my
Yeah.
jokey one out of the way. No, you don't have to like cats. I think to being a good accountant, or good qualities for being an accountant, is a big, or have being really good at focusing on the details, good attention to detail. You do see a lot of numbers. You're looking at spreadsheets all day. You're looking at financial statements. And it's having that eye and kind of realizing, oh, that's slightly wrong, or that shouldn't be in the right place, or knowing that, oh, there's a variance and we need to explain this. So having good attention to detail is definitely a good quality, and that comes with time as well. Like, I remember when I was at Disney, I was 19. It was a placement year, and I'd only been at school, sixth form, and then been at university, and kind of thrown into this finance department. And there were mistakes, and I didn't know what the mistakes were. And so I learned that from my peers, and especially one finance director that I had. He was amazing, and he kind of taught me those like little things to look out for. And now it's like second nature to me. So that definitely comes with experience. And because I had that industry experience and did my qualification during industry, it's not something you can really teach. It's just a thing that you pick up in. I don't think that just necessarily applies to being an accountant. It's probably in all industries and all careers. So yeah, attention to detail. I mentioned this earlier, but problem solving. A lot of things, we call it like putting out fires. So a lot of things that we see, the journals that we post, is because things aren't in the right place, or we're making sure that there won't be a fire later on down the line. And I remember that because there might be historic mistakes or historic errors that you have to correct, and that's when you go into like this deep dark hole when you're trying to find out why this has happened. So definitely problem solving. Communication, because you are communicating with a lot of different stakeholders, and these are finance stakeholders and non-finance stakeholders. And communication needs to be, just as it always is, clear, easy to understand, precise. But a big thing I've learned is to tailor your terminology depending on who you're talking to. So if you're talking to a non-finance stakeholder, talking about accruals and prepayments and all this accounting terminology isn't going to get you very far. It's kind of just adjusting what you say depending on who you're talking to. Again, if you're talking to auditors, they don't necessarily know the full background of what's happened. And so just being a bit, or taking the time to talk to someone and telling them the full story is good. So yeah, good communication, being organised. I think that's in any job, being organised. I'm very organised with my emails. It's almost like a to-do list, and if it's not a to-do list, it goes into a folder. Being organised because you've got deadlines. I think a lot of these things that I'm saying isn't just for an accountant, it's for a lot of careers, and yeah. So yes, organisation, working to deadlines and working under pressure, because there are times of the year where you have multiple deadlines. So you have to do month end, which doesn't get lighter because you have another deadline. You've still got the amount of work, and you might have the auditors asking you queries, or you might have management asking, can I have this report? So it's managing deadlines and prioritizing. And again, I guess that kind of leads back into communication, talking to your manager and making sure that you know where your priorities are, so that you can complete everything on time. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't think I'm a stereotypical accountant, because a stereotypical accountant is wrong. They're known as being boring. So yeah.
No, definitely. And thank you for kind of listing some of the qualities and kind of the skills, I suppose. And like you said, that you might feel like they're just quite open to various different industries. And I think this is a thing I try to really push with, not just the kind of coaching I do when helping people transition careers, but like people who are looking at their first roles. I think we get really scared, especially if we've done a career for say 5 or so years, that's all we think, oh, this is all we know and we can't do anything else.
Yeah.
But some of the skills you've kind of mentioned in terms of that organisation, that resilience perhaps to pressure, and the attention to detail, you'll probably find them in quite a lot of different other careers. So when we're
Yeah.
looking to transition professions, it's really picking out those work experiences and those jobs and activities you've done and using it and referencing it, say in interviews or when you're looking at other jobs to see what they apply to. And you'll be surprised how many jobs that you could, with a little bit of getting up to speed with terminology, abbreviations is often the biggest one, but you could have the kind of the right skill set to do other roles, you know?
No, definitely. I think I've spoken to a lot of people in the companies that I've worked in that have used accountancy because it's a good start. You learn a lot. Whatever this is a corporate department you work in, you always need an understanding of finance because you're always going to need to use it. So being an accountant is a good foundation place, I think, to start with. But I knew a guy that wanted to go into marketing. And as you're right, those skills that I listed before do transcend between the two. Even like things that you do in your personal life, being organised, making sure you contact your mum and all these communication things. It doesn't necessarily have to be even between career, it could be personal life and work life. So yeah, it's you're right, the technical stuff, that is something that you do exams for, or you work in your job for however long you get that experience. But the transferable skills, yeah, they go between many different jobs and industries.
Yeah, no, amazing. And I suppose what'll be interesting to know as well, like now that you know you've had a fair stint in terms of the accountancy, you've done a couple different roles as well within that. What would you say are perhaps the most rewarding or even the most challenging aspects of the job?
Um, I think the most rewarding thing for me so far has been qualifying, because it was hard. It was, as I said before, you have to manage your time between work, your personal life, and doing exams, and obviously one of them has got to give, and it was my personal life, or social life, and to hold my certificate when it came through, it was like I was immensely proud. So not only could I then apply it to work, and being qualified obviously comes with progression and pay, and it wasn't really about that. It was in that moment, it was about me being proud of me. Um, but yeah, the rewarding parts of being an accountant, I think a lot of people, first of all, are like dollar signs in their eyes. So that's I don't. It's not a main one for me, but it is one that people talk about, especially when you're qualified. A good thing about being an accountant as well is that I'm not saying I'm good at doing a tax return, and I'm not asking anyone here to get me to do their tax return, but it gives you a bit of accountability into your personal finances as well, because if you can do it at work, you can do it at home as well, hopefully. So I think, again, as part of qualifying, just seeing progress from me, like taking on more responsibility through promotions or even new projects, even just progressing in Excel. So the dream would be to be able to use Excel and not use a mouse. That is the dream. And there's so many resources that on YouTube, even on TikTok, there's people that teach you Excel shortcuts and the quickest way to do things, and to make the most, I guess, boring data look amazing. So you can show it to lots of different stakeholders and get them to understand things a bit better. So yeah, the progress, I guess, is a big thing for me, because I have massive imposter syndrome still, and that's slowly starting to fade away the more I feel settled in a job and things like that. So also, I guess that another good thing is that feeling useful within the business, as I've mentioned before, you're very dependent on other parts of the business and they're dependent
Yeah.
on you. And that's a really nice feeling, to feel that you are part of this bigger picture, especially if it is a big company. So yeah, there are lots of rules to being an accountant. I think the qualification as well, like
Yeah.
it's a really nice thing to say to people you're an accountant, because I know it in French now. So when I'm speaking to a French person, I say accountant, and everyone knows it. So it's the qualification. The one I did is like worldwide recognized as well. So you can travel and you can work in different sectors. That's a really good thing. You can work remotely. You can work in the office. You can work in different industries. I've always tended to stay in media, music, because I enjoy that. And because I enjoy that, I feel like I'm more motivated and I have more passion towards my job. But you can work, I've got friends in the NHS, I've got friends that are consultants. So they use that accounting knowledge and help people improve their accounting systems or accounting processes. I've got friends that did the accounting qualification and aren't even accountants now. So I guess flexibility is a big reward of being an accountant as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting how, before I ask you perhaps what the most more challenging aspects of the role, it's interesting. Obviously, you said loads there, but you mentioned the prestige and the money. But then, of course, obviously, there was much more in terms of the being, creating value for businesses and other people, and the element of progress is always quite nice to feel like you're working towards something. And I know I kind of smiled a little bit when you said about it, and I know you kind of smiled as well, because I'm always wary of when people chase jobs purely. It's at the end of the day, there's a cost of living crisis.
Mm.
You want to do things outside of work. Travel is my biggest thing, that I kind of spend my money on. And that doesn't come cheap, not all the time at least. But like, if you were to purely or solely chase a career based on prestige and money, I suppose that's when the red flags come up for me, and that's what I
Mm.
find a lot when I coach other accountants. They have sometimes, some people have purely gone into the industry because of the prestige and money. So they like being known as an accountant and they like that kind of salary that comes with it. But they very quickly, after say 4 or 5 years, and they've gone through that, they realise when times get tough, or perhaps it gets a bit too monotonous in whatever aspect of the role they're doing, there isn't a wider why, there isn't a wider purpose behind why they're doing their job. They purely did it to be liked by others and to have that money to kind of flash and do other things. And I think for
Yeah.
you, what you said is really key for other people to listen, is massive aspects, but also the progress and the creating value for others and being able to problem solve perhaps should even more be the reason why people look at this industry.
Yeah, definitely. I think if your sole motivation is money and prestige, you're going to burn out. And it's not, there's no longevity in it. I guess a good thing about my job, well, being an accountant, is that as well. it does. It's not a 24/7 job, and that's a real, like, I know a lot of jobs are, and it takes a toll on social lives. But my job does also allow me to have a good social life and to do like hobbies and travel and this kind of stuff. So it's my view on a career is that I want a balance. I don't want to be known as the accountant. I want to have a mixture of both. And yeah, I think being an accountant, there are busy times, don't get me wrong. There are times that you have to work late because of deadlines, but there's also times where you can log off at 5:30, and I can go to the gym or I can go see friends, and that's a really, really good benefit of it, because there's some jobs that just don't allow you to do that.
Yeah. No, no, it's true. It's true. And thank you for kind of, it's also, of course, I hear it kind of firsthand from the clients I serve, but it's also interesting to hear from your point of view as well. Um, and as we kind of start to pull this to a close, I suppose, if you could just quickly as well touch on just perhaps what you think are some of the most challenging aspects of the role.
Yeah, sure. I have lost you on video, but I can hear you. So um I think the challenges that I face are the I want to say the repetitiveness, maybe sometimes, of monthly cycles. It's great, don't get me wrong, because I know exactly what I'm doing every month, and I know how to manage my workload, and I know exactly what's coming up at that month end week. But it is the same thing because it needs to be done. You can't avoid those month end deadlines or the yearly deadlines or the audit or the budget. So that's, I guess, one challenge that I face, is that it's how to keep the spontaneity, I guess, of the job, and it's that being proactive and finding new um, things to investigate, or new projects, or speaking to new people. Do you need help? Do you need reports? Can we help you? And that's how I guess, you get over the repetitiveness of monthly cycles. And I've probably mentioned this quite a lot, so you can see it's a challenge. But it's the deadlines. It's challenge juggling multiple deadlines, because every job has pressure. I'm not just saying it's this job, but it's a lot when you're almost being pulled in separate directions, and you just need to find a way. And again, it gets easier with time. I'm not saying it's a forever thing, but having multiple deadlines is definitely challenging. But again, it's a progress thing because you learn how to prioritize. So yeah, there are challenges, but I see them as how can we get better? What is my progress, and how do I be a bit more proactive about things?
Yeah, and I think that speaks to your mindset, I suppose, Anna, in terms of like seeing those challenges as opportunities for learning, almost. So I think thank you, kind of, for sharing that. And I suppose as we start to kind of pull us to a close, it'd be interesting, and it's a question I often ask most of my kind of guests when we delve into careers. Obviously, you've been in the industry for now a good 4 to 5 years. You've had a good taste of various jobs and various aspects. And I suppose if you were speaking to that younger Hannah, say 4 or 5 years ago, before entering the industry of accounting, what would be your piece or pieces of advice for that younger Hannah?
Um, God, I think be confident in your own ability. It can seem very intimidating when you go into a workplace, when you are faced with exams, and it's almost just, don't be scared. It gets better. It's a massive learning curve, and as you can see from what I said earlier, I'm very proud of myself for doing it. So be confident in your ability. I'm still working on that. I still have imposter syndrome, especially when I was promoted to a finance manager. That was a big step for me. So I'm still on that journey. So maybe I should listen to myself now instead of listening to what I'm saying to my younger self as well. But also, I think I was so set in I'm very I'm a planner. I'm very much like, we know what we're doing. You're going to you're picking your A levels. You're going to university, and then you're doing your qualification. And I think I maybe needed to take less pressure off myself and realize that it doesn't matter if I don't get the A level grades. It doesn't matter if I even go to university, because there are other pathways. I knew that I wanted to be an accountant, but I think because I didn't have that insight, I didn't know that there were other options. I could have done AAT. I didn't have to do it all at the same time. I didn't have to do it in the 3-year period of doing a grad scheme. So I guess hopefully things like this help people realise that there isn't one pathway. Don't put pressure on yourself that you have to be this ideal career, study pathway to get to that career. There's lots of different ways to get there. So yeah, stop worrying, I guess, is the thing. It will work its way out in the end, and that's why it's a really good career, because there are lots of pathways to get to the same place. And even if you're not qualified, you're still an accountant. You're still really helping the business. You're needed. You're an integral part of the team. So yeah, that would be my takeaways to a younger Hannah.
Amazing, amazing. And it's interesting how you kind of touch on imposter syndrome, and how, people might have imposter syndrome trying to transition careers. I often find
Mm.
they think, who am I to want to change careers or how to do that? And I think it's important for people to hear and listen to the vulnerability and what you've said as well. As even as someone who's been there, done it, got the T-shirt to a certain extent, you still have elements of that imposter syndrome, and I think that will help hopefully others and the people who are listening, regardless of whatever they're doing in their life, and regardless of the level, we kind of look at people. Everyone will have these doubts
Mm.
to a certain degree. So, thank you so much for kind of sharing, your time and your kind of insight with us, Hannah. And just before we kind of wrap up, is there anything you think we haven't covered, perhaps that you would like to discuss?
I guess I just want to touch on, because I said I was on a career break. So I guess that's another benefit of being an accountant, is that I've taken some time away. The exams, the qualification is very intense. I then had another 2 years after that of working at Warner. And now, for personal reasons, I've taken a career break, and it's a really good advantage of being an accountant, because although I have to do CPD, so it's like a training that you have to do throughout the year to keep your qualification. Once you're qualified, I still have to do that, but I've been able to take this break and meet you and do volunteering and things that I'm going to make me a better person and be happier and fulfill other things that I've always wanted to do. But I know that I have my accountant qualification and my experience to fall back on. So when we decide to go back to our jobs, I have that. It's a really good benefit of the qualification and being an accountant. And also, if I don't decide to come back to the UK and be an accountant, I know that my qualification and the profession is all over the world. So I don't have to be in my hometown, and you can explore and you can work in so many different industries. So that's why I have I like music. I like working at Disney. That was amazing. Companies that excite me, I can be part of, as well as play into my strengths as being an accountant. So I think flexibility is a good way to sum it up. But yeah, just a last an added note.
Amazing, and thank you for kind of, like you said, sharing that personal insight, but with us and with the listeners. I think because, like you said, it's a good grounding that can apply firstly internationally, but that allows you to kind of have that flexibility in terms of your career, regardless of what kind of point you're at. And it's a real foundation. You see a lot of people in kind of C-suite, so your kind of board level positions. If that is something you do aspire to do, a lot of people have had accounting qualifications and then go into those kind of positions because it gives them a real good grounding of the financial health of an organisation, especially, I suppose, management accounting, that proactive nature. That's, you would say, one of, if not the sole thing that a board focuses on is, yes, we kind of have to be aware of operational matters, but we're
Mm.
always thinking of the long-term strategy of a business, so 3
Yeah.
to 5 years ahead. So and it's been an absolute pleasure to have you, Hannah. Thank you for sharing your insight. And if anyone wants to connect with you or reach out, if they've got any specific questions about accounting, where would be the best place for them to touch base?
Thank you so much for having me. I've had a great time. Even this has pushed me because I've never done a podcast before, as probably people can tell. So even this has been really good. So thank you for having me. But yeah, I'm more than welcome to answer any questions. Probably more detail as to how you can get into being doing the exams or my job or whatever. I'm very, very happy. But the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. My name is Hannah Powell, the Welsh spelling, Powell. And yeah, very happy to answer any questions.
Amazing. And I'll be sure to include a link to kind of Hannah's LinkedIn in the show notes. And equally, if you want help, you hear the accounting, you think this is a career you want to kind of transition into, or perhaps you are an accountant and you want to transition out of that career, my link to my website as well will be in the show notes. Michael Classic Coaching, to help guide, support, but most importantly, challenge you as well on that journey. So thank you again for listening to this episode, and I'll see you on the next episode of Catapult Your Career.